With contracts expiring and more, this is Wrestling Hub. My name is John, and you're watching The Wrestling Report. Before we get into the rest of the video, make sure you subscribe to Wrestling Hub and turn on all notifications to stay up to date with everything in the world of pro wrestling. Also, don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Wrestling Hub Official and follow us on Twitter at Wrestling_Hub. Mentioning a comeback to professional wrestling, Summer Rae told Chris Van Vliet, "So I miss wrestling. I personally wouldn't. I have a bone spur on a vertebrae in my neck and I have thoracic outlet syndrome. So I'm doing good, but at the end of my injury, I kind of have the tingling in my hands where I couldn't really open doors, and that was a little scary to me. I don't think I could wrestle every week and be in that role, and I don't think that's my purpose either. I think, being able to highlight talents and pull the best out of them and being able to make them the main thing and being able to showcase new younger talent and bring them up with what I know from the business, I would love to do something like that." During that same interview, Summer Rae recalled her WWE return at the Royal Rumble, expressing annoyance over the company announcing her comeback beforehand. I was bummed that they announced me before because I felt like no one thought I was going to come back ever, and I'm so good at hiding stuff like pretending that I'm somewhere else. So I remember when they said they were going to announce me, they literally called me the day of and I was doing cardio. I'm like, okay, cool. And then I'm like, I haven't told any of my friends. I was fabing everyone. For a workout, The Undertaker can be seen bench pressing his wife, Michelle McCool. As John Cena is set to star in the movie Vacation Friends 2, he can be seen having a new look. With Elias not included in the most recent WWE draft and not having been seen on programming since last year, Steve Carey of Ringside News wrote that we've asked about Elias and we got an update, but it's not a great one. We were told that no one is talking about Elias because the belief is that the Ezekial storyline killed his career. Touching on the differences between AEW Dynamite and Collision, Jim Ross noted on his Grilling JR podcast, "The atmosphere at Collision, in my opinion, is entirely different than the mindset in the atmosphere at Dynamite. There's less people, less crew, less talents, so it's a lot calmer. I think the talents have more time to work their matches out. It's just a different atmosphere, and it's a good atmosphere. Always fun. Good seeing the talents. We got a good crew going. I think Punk and Tony Khan pretty much put that roster together, and I like it. That's good talents. They're motivated. They like the ownership of that show and the fact that they can make a difference, and I think that's cool. All good, man. I'm looking to it. I enjoy being around the talent." Sticking with Jim Ross, this would be said about his AEW status in the Wrestling Observer newsletter. Jim Ross returned on the August 5th Collision. He only came out to do the main event of CM Punk versus Ricky Starks. It was not announced ahead of time he'd be there, nor mentioned during the show until his music played. He'd previously said and told us he was targeting London as a hoped-for date for his return, but beat that by 3 weeks. His contract expires in September. For a WWE status update on former AEW star Brian Pillman Jr., the Wrestling Observer newsletter revealed, PW Insider reported Brian Pillman Jr. to be starting on NXT television, which didn't happen. The only thing we were told by those in the company is they believe he hasn't been signed, that no creative involving him has been talked about, but that he is undergoing medicals and thus, unless they discover something bad, he will be signed. Following one half of the women's tag team champion Sonya Deville suffering a torn ACL, it looks like a course of action has been decided on for the belts, as Ringside News wrote. According to Dave Meltzer in the current Wrestling Observer newsletter, WWE might have plans to run tournament for the titles, despite the fact Chelsea Green recently made it clear she will be holding a Chelsea's Got Talent audition for a new tag team partner after Sonya Deville got injured. It would be added that we have been able to confirm that a decision about the titles has been made for the WWE Women's Tag Team Champions. Expect an announcement on SmackDown or Raw. Taking to social media, former WWE star James Ellsworth said this about potentially being the new tag team partner of Chelsea Green following Sonya Deville's injury. Here's the video.
Chelsea, pick me, James Ellsworth. I mean, think about what I did for Carmella. I was a part of the first ever Women's Money in the Bank ladder match. I played an integral part in helping her, get the briefcase and get the contract and successfully cash it in to become women's champion. I got Mickey Mouse curtains. You like Disney, right? You guys love Disney, so I mean, we have a lot in common. I mean, besides, I really could probably use another payday, if you know what I mean. Pick me, Chelsea. Pick me.
Talking about his time thus far on NXT as a commentator, Booker T said this on his Hall of Fame podcast. "I'm loving it. The ratings, everything, man. My spot, contract coming up, everything, man. Everything's good." Recalling his return to WWE, Cody Rhodes was asked when he knew he was home, as he told Fightful, "Night after WrestleMania in Dallas, I saw so many kids in the crowd who didn't care about what I had done for 3 years or the 10 years before that. They were present in the moment. They thought the guy who had just come in was cool and they were going to be a part of it, and they liked the energy. It was at that point where I felt the thing you have been seeking, the cool moves, great. Wonderful promos, great. Trying to make them wonderful and trying to hit home runs with everything, but that connection is what we do. It's why guys and girls get into it, and it's why it's hard to walk away, and why it's so fun to come back. That night after WrestleMania, I knew something special was happening, and I'm here for it." Speaking of the American Nightmare, the Wrestling Observer newsletter said this regarding WWE's feeling about Rhodes not beating Roman Reigns at WrestleMania 39. "Those in WWE are strong in the idea that growth is proof that the decision not to put the title on Rhodes at that time was the right one, and in theory, someday they will. You could argue that you could have done the Bloodline stuff for the Tribal Chief spot and had Rhodes with the belt, and it would have been as good or better, but thus far, you can't argue what has been done has been effective in growth." Revealing an interesting detail on the match between Brock Lesnar and Cody Rhodes, the Wrestling Observer newsletter noted that Lesnar, who was injured early in the match where he put over Cody Rhodes, was at one point advertised for stuff later this year. As of right now, he put Rhodes over clean, shook his hand, turned himself back babyface in doing so, and the plan is for him to return on the television building up the Royal Rumble, and from there going to WrestleMania. Although I could see him returning for the November Saudi Arabia show, even if today that isn't the plan, or if there is an injury, he's always there if they need a program. In a video prior to WrestleMania, Brock Lesnar can be seen interacting with Jey Uso's son.
I left you hanging. Come here. Thank you.
With it having been rumored that she will be making a return to WWE in the near future, Nia Jax said this about a pro wrestling comeback, telling WrestleBinge, "I am training. I'll train over at Devon Dudley's ring. He's great. And I go over to Natalya and TJ's, so they run me through some drills and stuff like that. And I have matches in there. I'll get in the ring every now and then, like some of my friends, like Charlotte and her husband, Andrade El Idolo." On the nature of the injury Roman Reigns had at SummerSlam, the Wrestling Observer newsletter stated, Reigns suffered either a hip or back injury from the top rope from Jey Uso about 5 minutes into his main event match. You could see the way he moved and walked that he was in pain, but to his credit, unless you were looking for it, you probably didn't see it. When it comes to the reason behind Vince McMahon undergoing a spinal procedure, the Wrestling Observer newsletter pointed out that Vince McMahon's spinal surgery was for his back. Some had thought it was for his neck, where he had surgery in 1994 before his trial. It's likely from a lifetime of heavy lifting, notably continuing to do squats heavy long after most would have given up on it for care of their bodies. Squats are the best exercise for building muscle, but in time they will take their toll on your hips and back. And McMahon has had his hip issues as well, but never got a hip replacement because he was told he would have to give up heavy squats. In a funny story, when Mick Foley went to get his hip replaced, and this was many years ago, Vince advised him against it and said that if he gets it, it means he can't do heavy squats any longer. Of course, Foley was decades past the idea of doing heavy squats. Due to the upcoming UFC merger, WWE could be experiencing another round of cuts, as Ringside News wrote. In an earnings call hosted by Endeavor, CEO Ari Emanuel disclosed ongoing efforts aimed at achieving rapid cost reductions and synergies post-merger. These indications strongly suggest the likelihood of employee layoffs affecting both WWE and UFC personnel, as the amalgamation into the unified entity TKO Holdings Group officially takes off. The thought of cuts in WWE sparked a lot of discussion, especially within the section of fans who believe that the pandemic cuts for the company were enough. They gutted entire divisions, and losing more employees is not the ideal situation. Ringside News reached out to inquire about the current situation about cuts within WWE. A tenured member of the team confirmed to us that no one really knows about the situation. Any projection that there will be cuts was based on what Ari Emanuel said on that call. The fact is that most mergers also result in firings, as redundancies are found. Still, the TKO Holdings Group might be different because WWE and UFC will still run separately under one umbrella. As we previously reported, any cuts that have been theorized as for internal employees. At this time, there is no discussion about cutting any talent from the roster. And this was your pro wrestling news update. I hope you're all having a great day. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see y'all later.